It came from.
So anyway, we're telling the story of this person, Joe Schmo, who has now graduated college, gone to the first job, and is thinking about jumping ship. So let's answer the question. Moving from one company to another. Imposter syndrome? Question mark. This one's from Why Wait So Overpriced on the user experience subreddit. And so they say, so I'm a level 1 at my current company I'm working at, but I've been leading projects on my own, more or less. So I'm potentially moving out to a similar sized company with a more established design culture and cross-functional relationships with user experience, but it'll be more of a mid-level role with an entirely new domain I'll have to grasp. During my interview, I think I overload myself a bit on how I deal with certain situations and work with PMs and engineers, but maybe that's just imposter syndrome. I know my potential manager will have tons of resources for me, and I've mentioned imposter syndrome to him during my one-on-one interview. Any tips for me when I start the new company? Blake.
So this all sounds normal for sure,
yeah.
Because it's so funny to me. So when you go through the interview process, you try to be somewhere in the middle, but you tend to always oversell yourself because like when a question gets asked, what the right answer is. So you'll lean into that. Like that's pretty natural here. So overselling yourself in an interview is one thing, but the reality of that is the person you're talking to has to be able to weigh like, okay, how much am I trusting all of this person is saying? And they have to weigh how much they expect you to be able to do on your own. But they'll still need to like help you through the company. So ultimately, because you're starting something completely new in a different style of role, with a new domain, I mean, there is going to be enough kind of learning curve uptime for you to kind of get a handle on where you're at in reality. But if you already have been doing a lot of like management and dealing with different cross-functional teams outside of a company with a really defined like design culture, I think you're going to find it a good bit easier to insert yourself into a new culture that has design processes that are put in place, and you'll be able to learn a whole lot just from being in a new spot. And if you were upfront about somebody in a one-on-one interview, like before you even got the job, there are imposter syndrome issues, that's awesome because it shows a good bit of vulnerability. So from my perspective, if that was you and me in an interview, I would have a lot more trust than I did when you first walked into the interview, just because you were able to tell me exactly how you're feeling. So I think that there's probably a nice, careful balance of feeling like you're going to a brand new role. You're kind of nervous about it. You haven't gone through that proof of concept period where you have to perform or whatever and see what you're really made of. But I think that's natural going into any brand new role. And I wouldn't doubt your prior experience, and then kind of think about retrospectively what you would improve from your prior job into a new role and see how you can grow into this new place.
Yeah. My answer is going to be fairly simple here. I think imposter syndrome is a terrible disease, and needs to be eradicated. But I also feel like, look, if you are going to, if you're interviewing with a company that, in your words, have established a more established design culture, cross-functional relationships with UX, chances are they know what they're doing when they're hiring people. And so I would look at the fact that the company has this great design culture, great cross-functional relationship with other groups, and say, okay, well, they know what they're doing if they were to hire me, which would then backhandedly give me faith in myself if they hired me. So what I'm saying here is they're hiring you for a reason, and it's normal to feel imposter syndrome. But if they didn't think that you couldn't do the job, they wouldn't have hired you. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. So, there's a certain understanding that any job that you pick up, you're going to have a learning curve where you're learning a new domain. Potentially, it could be the same domain, but there's still nuances to every job that you have to learn. And it's not just a walk in and lead the show. It's going to be walk in, learn the culture, learn the product, learn the user, and then act on those. And, it might take you a month, 2 months to get up to speed. But once you're there, you're there. And again, they won't hire you unless they think you can do it. And if you can't do it, then they'll fire you. And that's it. That's the simplicity of it.
Yeah. And I mean, either way, it's going to be a good learning experience. And I think a lot of people get caught in their heads about that they don't know what they're doing. And it's easy to do because we work, I think, like, especially in the human factors world, we work in a lot of complex domains where just learning a domain seems insane, much less doing the job.
I agree.